My name is Sue Polowick, and I've been working with the Sage 100 payroll software for more years than I would care to reveal. And seeing here are the topics that we'll be covering today: preparing for payroll year end, generating the reports and where to go to get them, filing your quarterly and year-end reports, processing your W-2s and W-3s, period end closing, loading your tax tables for next year, some considerations for year end, and a little bit about the Affordable Care Act and how to generate those reports in Sage 100, and some year-end resources that are available. Any questions and answers can be typed into the chat box, and we will try to address them as we go. Otherwise, we will address them at the end. Okay, so some things that you can do to get ready for your year-end payroll in Sage 100. If you're using Paperless Office, you can turn on the ability to have your payroll year-end reports immediately sent to PDF. Okay, and you would do that by going to your Paperless Office and first making sure that your period end reports option is checked. And then you would go to period end report maintenance, and this is where you would decide where your reports are going to go, whether you want them to automatically go to PDF, whether you want the system to prompt you, or whether you don't want them to go to PDF at all. And you would enter the path of where your PDFs are actually going to be residing. The next thing you want to do is make sure that in company maintenance for each of your payroll companies that your federal ID number is listed. This is necessary in order to print your 941s and your W-2s. And then last of all, you want to make sure that you're on a version of Sage 100 that is supported by Sage with regard to the year-end downloads and updates. And you can find out by clicking on Help. And if you're in the classic view, then the drop-down would show you an option for About Sage 100. If you're in the view that you're seeing on my screen, then you would go to the last icon, Sage 100 About. And then this tells you what version you're on and what service update you're on. So if we go back to the PowerPoint, we can see here that version 2016 Service Pack or Update 5 is the minimum that you need to be on. And if you're on version 2017, then you need to at least have Update 1 or higher loaded. And if you're on 2018, it would be Update or Service Pack 2. And on 2018, payroll is a separate installation, so you would need to be on Update 5. Okay, and if you check and find that you're not on the minimum version or service pack, please contact us and we can help you get onto the current version in time to do your period end. Okay, so if you're on version 2017 or lower, then what will happen is when you run your period end, your quarter and year-to-date data will be purged from the system. And the only way that you can access that data is restoring from a backup company. So it is absolutely imperative that a database backup be performed and a company backup be performed before you perform your period end processing. You don't want to begin entering payroll for the new quarter until the backup has been created and then quarter end has been completed. Also, if you're on a version 2017 or lower, in your payroll options, you want to make sure that Retain Perpetual Payroll History is turned on. And just so that, because that's so important, we'll go there and we'll see where that's done. So in your payroll module, under your setup menu, the very first task, payroll options, you would bring that up, and on the first screen, it's retain perpetual payroll history. You want to make sure that's turned on before you perform period end. Okay. Now, on version 2018, things work a little bit differently. When payroll period end processing is run, quarter date and year-to-date data are retained in the system, and they remain for the number of years that you have chosen to retain history in payroll. So this works a lot like the other modules that you're used to. The minimum number of years that you can store is 4, which includes the current year. And you do have the ability to enter payroll into future quarters and periods. However, we strongly recommend that a backup company be created before you run your period end processing. This just avoids any issues and makes 200% sure that the history will always be available to you. Okay, so this is the process flow of the steps that would be taken when you're preparing and performing your period end and getting ready to do your payroll in 2019. The first thing you would do is process the last payroll for Q4 of 2018. Next, you want to perform that database backup and then create a new company and copy into it your live payroll company. And if you have multiple payroll companies, you want to create multiple new companies and back up each one separately. Your next step would be to print your quarterly reports and then go forward and print your quarterly 941s and any state tax forms that are necessary. After that, there is a download called the Interim Release Download, IRD for short, and that becomes available on Sage's website in and around the third week of December. The tentative date that they have released for that to be published this year is December 19th. And normally they're very close to reaching the estimated dates. Once that IRD is downloaded, then you can print your W-2s. And after the IRD is downloaded and then the W-2s are printed, then you'll perform period end processing. Keeping in mind that on versions 2017 and lower, performing period end processing clears the quarter and year-to-date data from the system. Now you're ready to move on to 2019, which involves updating the tax tables. And on 2017, it's different than on 2018, so we'll talk about that. If you're on 2017 or lower, you do have some manual work to do after the tax tables are updated, depending on whether you track local taxes and if there have been any changes made to the state unemployment or disability. And then finally, you move on to processing the first payroll for 2019. So there are two types of reports that you would run to get ready for your period end. The first type would be the reports that are on the Sage 100 menu. And in versions 2017 or lower, you can see they're listed there on the left. And on the right are the reports as they appear in 2018. The reports are very much the same. Some of them have the exact same name, and some are named a little bit differently, but are easily recognized as the same reports. The only difference would be that the benefit accrual report in versions 2017 and lower is called the time off accrual report in version 2018. Another difference is that in 2017 and lower on the period end report, there are a couple of tools that are available to you that are no longer needed in version 2018 because of its design, and that is the quarterly governmental report and the employee totals verification. And on slide 7, we have a description of each of the reports and a little bit of detail about what they include. And that can be a good reference for you later. So once these reports have been generated, in order to move forward, you'll now need to download and install the IRD. Once that's been published on Sage's website, it can be downloaded by anyone who has a business care plan with Sage and a current payroll plan. And it needs to be downloaded and installed before running your W-2s. Again, you must be on one of these versions in order to be able to install the IRD. And they're listed here: 2016 Update 5, 2017 Update 1, and 2018 Update 2. Now, if you're on version 2016, you want to bear in mind that this is the last year that updates will be available for that version. So in 2019, you're going to want to plan to do a full version upgrade. Version 2018 is the currently published version. Version 2019 is due out in a few months. If you install a new product update, new unlocking keys from Sage will be required. And RKL can help you with that if necessary. Just give us a call. So the next reports that you'll need to generate after the IRD has been installed are your quarterly tax forms and your W-2s. Now, in order to generate them, you'll need to access a task called eFiling and Reporting, or if you're on version 2018, it's called Federal and State Tax Reporting. So this is a task that requires you to have the IRD downloaded. It also requires installation on a workstation. And if you go to the workstation setup menu, you'll see that as an option. It may prompt you to download new forms when you first run it, which you'll need to do. And then finally, you need to have an active Sage Business Care plan in order to use this tool, as well as an internet connection and to be on one of the minimum supported versions. Okay, so we see the two menus here, 2017 and lower and 2018. Both of them have this task listed under the period end menu, and they're named a little bit differently, as we mentioned before. What I'd like to do is kind of walk you through how to generate a 941 form, and that will give you an idea of how this tool works. The screens that you'll see will be different depending on whether you're running a 941 or some other type of quarterly report, or whether you're generating W-2s. So on the period end menu, I'm going to go to Federal eFiling and Reporting, and I'm going to see a screen like this. I want to make sure that the year and the quarter are 2018, quarter 4. Now, ideally, I'm running this from the live company, but that doesn't always happen. Sometimes there are vacations, holidays, companies close. Sometimes you may have to run this from a test company. If you do, you simply want to make sure that you change the information so that it reads properly before you move forward. What you see on this screen is what will print on your forms. There's your federal ID number as it's listed in company maintenance, and your other information comes from company maintenance as well. And you have some selection criteria that you can choose from. So you want to choose the form that you're running. In this case, it's our 941 Schedule B, 941V, and then click Accept. The wizard does the rest, and it prompts you for various things, and they're very intuitive. So all of the screens that you encounter are going to be very easy for you to make choices in. And what it's telling me here is I made some changes to my company information and whether or not I want to accept them. Another screen comes up that gives me my company ID, and if this is not correct, I'll need to cancel and change it in company maintenance. And then this is just a screen about I use a single payroll data file for this EIN, or I may share a federal ID number among several companies in Sage 100 for payroll. I can fill in any blanks here. Some of this information is required, such as address and phone number. Some of it is optional. I'm filing for my company employer, or I am a third-party paid tax preparer. And then I may have some work to do here, I may not. I will need to have all of the state and local codes that are necessary, and they need to have correct tax account numbers. If they don't, and they're not in the correct format, they'll be highlighted in red, and I'll need to edit them before I can move forward. So what's happening is the government, by allowing this tool, is making sure that by the time the form gets to them, it's going to be correct. So all of your blanks need to be filled in. Everything needs to be correct. And there's a little bit of a guide here that tells you that you can review and edit. If there are any fields in red, they need to be addressed before you move forward. Okay, and then please complete any red fields. And then you can edit what's in blue, or you can move on to the next step. You can print, or you can save at this juncture. Now, if you move on to the next step, some screens will appear that will allow you to either choose to print or to electronically file. If you choose to electronically file, then it will tell you on the screen just how much it will cost you to do that. So if you don't want to electronically file, then what you want to do is you want to just make sure that before you move on, all of the totals at the bottom of the screen say 0. And if not, then some checkbox needs to be unchecked in order to make that happen. Okay. So if I had all of my information filled out, I would be able to move on. I would have to agree that this is my final form. And then once I did, I would have the option to either print it or electronically file. So this gives you an idea of how this tool works. We do have a guide available in a PDF format. If anybody is interested in receiving that guide, please let us know, and we'd be happy to get that out to you. So again, this is the tool that you'll use for all of your quarterly and annual reports, as well as your W-2s. So once you're at this point in the process, then you are ready to begin getting ready to print your W-2s. The interim release download has to have been loaded. Your last payroll has to have been completed, and a backup company must have been made. At that point, you are ready to go ahead and print your W-2s from your federal e-filing and reporting menu. And again, in order to access that, you do have to have an active business care plan and be on the supported version of Sage 100. And this is just a picture of what the initial screen looks like. And if you see a W-2, W-3 form that's for 2017, click that, and then what you'll see is a prompt to upload the current forms. And you'll want to choose automatic, and then you'll just have to follow the prompts until the end. There's maybe 3 mouse clicks, and all of your current forms should then appear as 2018 forms. Now, even though this task in 2017 and lower is called e-filing, it's not really just e-filing. You can print these forms from your printer. It's e-filing and reporting. And in version 2018, the name has been changed to federal and state tax reporting. Just a word of caution. If time does not allow you to print your W-2s real time from the live company, and if you must move forward and process your first payroll for 2019, You can print your W-2s from your backup company. You simply need to pay attention to the FICA limit. If you're on version 2017 or lower, that means that you can load the 2019 tax table updates, process your first payroll for 2019, then print your W-2s from a backup, but first go into tax table maintenance and change the FICA limit back to what it was for 2018. And if you need help with this, we'd be happy to walk you through that. And what it means for 2018 is that any time during the last 2 weeks of December, if you get prompted to upload a tax table, you just want to refrain from doing that until your W-2s have been printed. So now you're ready to perform your period end, which means you can move on to 2019. You want to make sure all of your reports have been printed, your W-2s have been printed or electronically filed, you have a full backup company, and then you can go to your period end menu and click period end processing. It looks a little bit different in 2017 and lower than it does in 2018. In 2017 and lower, you will click quarter end and year processing. That is the second radio button. In 2018, there is no difference between quarter end and year end. The system knows by the fact that it's quarter four that it will also be performing year end as well. So there is no different option to choose. In 2017 and lower, if you click proceed, you'll get a list of reports to print or to automatically PDF, and those reports are defined by the system. In 2018, you do have the option to create your own list of reports, just like you do for your other modules. So I'll show you what that means in the system. Okay, if I go to my payroll and I go to period end processing in period end menu, I must click the second option. If I click proceed, I'm just going to get a warning about my W-2s, and it will list which quarter's being closed. And then I can pick any report to be printed or not, depending on what my options are. Okay, now once I click on print, if I wanted my reports to be PDF'd and I had set up my paperless office, they would be automatically sent to PDF and I can access them in the period end report viewer. They will not appear on the screen. Once I click complete period end processing yes, then all of my data will be purged from my live company if I'm on version 2017 or lower. Now, in version 2018, on the payroll period end menu, I will see an additional task for period end report selection. If I click that, then I can create my own list of period end reports that will appear when I go to do my period end processing. Okay, so moving right along, I am at the point now where I'm finished all of my year-end processes. I am now ready to load my tax tables for next year. If I'm on version 2017 or lower, that entails a manual download and installation. And the IRD and the tax table update are published at the same time, which will be in and around December 19th. So I will go to the Sage website and download both of those executables, and I will install them each at the appropriate time. If you need help with this, RKL will help. We're happy to go through this with you. And once you're finished downloading and installing the tax table update, there may be some additional work that may need to be done in tax table maintenance, which is in your setup menu in Payroll. you may need to make some changes to the state unemployment or disability rates, and you also may need to change the local tax rates if you're using local taxes, depending on if there have been any changes. Those changes are not handled by the download and installation of the new tax tables from Sage. So for version 2018, there is no manual download. If you are using version 2018, then what you will do is, if you are a user that wants to be notified when there is a change to a tax rate, there is a task in Setup called Service Notification Maintenance, and you would go there and enter your user ID, and if applicable, if you want to be notified by email, you would enter an email address. At that point, anytime during the year that a new tax update becomes available, you will receive an email with a link to download and install it. Also, when you log into Payroll, you will receive a message on the Sage 100 screen that there is a new tax update, and you can choose to install it at that time or not. Now, what we ask is that if you're on version 2018, that no tax table updates be automatically downloaded by you during the last 2 weeks of December, because when December 19th or thereabout comes and the 2019 tax tables are released, you will get a message pop up on the screen. However, you will not be ready to download it because the last payroll for 2018 will still not have been completed, and your W-2s will not have been run. So you want to refrain from answering yes to download any automatic updates to tax to your system until after you have performed all of the previous steps that we discussed. After that point, before you process your first payroll for 2019, you will want to download the new updates. Finally, some things for us to consider. When you're creating your backup copy of your company after your last payroll has been performed, you want to make sure you do it at a time when no one is logged into Sage 100. Because it does involve copying general ledger and common information data as well as payroll data, and that requires all users to be logged out. And another timing issue is the release of the IRD and the tax table update, which will be in and around the 19th. Now, Aatrix has not published on their site when they plan to have the new 2018 941 and W-2 forms available, but their updates normally coincide with those of Sage, so more than likely it will be in and around the beginning of the third week of December, just like Sage's. So anytime when you go into the e-filing and reporting task, if you are prompted to download forms, you'll want to click on Automatic and just walk through the wizard. If you're a large employer, meaning that you have 50 or more employees across all of your payroll companies, Affordable Care Act reporting is available in Sage 100. And what you would need to do in order to avail yourself of that is to populate the employer and the employee information. And we will go through those screens in future slides. If you have Visual Integrator module, that data can be imported via predefined spreadsheets and imports that Sage has created. You can go onto the Sage website and find out where they are, or we can assist you in getting those tools in place. Also, the perpetual history option that we discussed earlier is necessary in version 2017 and lower in order to be able to generate Affordable Care Act forms from Sage 100. There is also a way that you can copy the Affordable Care Act information from last year into this year and then simply make any changes that have occurred. A couple of other things, just make sure that you've processed your fringe benefits for the year and that you have processed an employer contribution deduction to report Affordable Care Act employer-sponsored health care, if that applies. Okay, and again, for version 2016, this will be the last year that you will be able to avail yourself of these tools. And there is a website that you can go to review the compatibility and the minimum requirements. There's also an end-of-year center on Sage City, and that website has been listed here as well. A little bit about Affordable Care Act. The rest of these slides, except for the last couple, have to do with the Affordable Care Act, which only applies if you are a large employer. And there is a web page listed here that will tell you just exactly what those qualifications are and if you fall into that category. So the screens that you'll see here are guidelines, but not the official IRS guidelines. So this flow chart kind of walks you through whether or not you do qualify, some general guidelines about whether you do have enough employees, is the plan self-insured, and whichever category you fall into, which forms are required. So if your organization is a large employer, 50 or more employees, or if you have other entities that combine together employ an average of at least 50 full-time employees, then more than likely you qualify for Affordable Care Act reporting. Employee maintenance, which is in Sage 100 on the ACA menu, is where you gather information for your 1095-C form. And you just choose the coverage that was offered to the employee for each month. And then you list the person and which month they were actually covered. So basically, you're just tracking coverage that was taken or coverage that was offered. And then some information that you need to fill out for your employer maintenance as well. Now, there is on the ACA menu an applicable large employer report. And if you run that report, what it will do is it will take the data from last year and populate it for this year. And then you will simply go in and make whatever changes may have occurred, and you'll be ready to go with your 2018 Affordable Care Act data. So this large employer report is offered as a self-help tool. Sage doesn't guarantee that the report will be accurate or that it will apply to your specific circumstances. So please check with your accountant and with the IRS website on that. But hours of service must be reported by calendar month. And because they are tracked by pay periods rather than by month in Sage 100, there is a calculation built into the report to get an approximate monthly total, but it may not be exact. Now, if you do contribute to your employee's health insurance, you're going to want to have a deduction code set up, and this page shows you how that screen should look in deduction code maintenance. And then this page talks about going to the federal e-filing and reporting and how you would generate your 1094-C and 1095-C forms. And they are basically in the list with the 941s and the W-2s, and you would simply choose them and advance through the wizard. It tells on this page what the title of the Sage Knowledge Base article is. where you would be able to reference to find the Visual Integrator jobs and spreadsheet. Now, if you're on a low version, meaning less than 2014 of Sage 100, obviously you won't be able to make use of these tools, but you will be able to make use of the Affordable Care Act worksheet to gather your Affordable Care Act information. And then that can be used as a tool to import into Sage 100 after you have updated to the necessary version and product update. And again, that does require the Visual Integrator module in order to import. So that's basically all we have for you today.